So, welcome back. This is part 2 of session 3 of our online Chazown experience. You should have just watched a short video from Craig. And we're going to begin today by looking at the 3 questions that Craig presented us with. You can find these on page 8 of your participant guide if you're following along. The first one is, what stirs righteous anger inside of you? And I know that Craig gave you some examples, and for me, it's lying, laziness, and the mistreatment of children. And what you're going to find is, as you begin to answer these questions, some of these things may actually become part of your purpose statement and part of your Chazown. But they're just really helpful ways at looking at what your core values actually are. Okay, so really answer that question honestly. What does make me mad? What makes me so angry? The second one is, what brings you bliss or gives you joy? And the third one is, what does your personal timeline tell you about your core values? So we're going to start today by looking at those 3 questions and answering them honestly and openly and being truthful with yourself. So you're going to do that. The next step is to go to page 9 of your participant guide, and you're going to begin circling the core values that may apply to you. Now, this is just a brainstorm of what your values might be, or the things that you do care about. We're going to actually narrow this list down a little bit later, but you're just going to start by circling the values that are important to you. Now, the list that you're going to find in your participant guide does not include all core values. So if there is something else that is very important to you, there's a place for you to add that to the list. The next step is that you're going to narrow down your list of core values, and you want to get your list down to 5 or 10 core values. Now, for some of you that may be hard. I know my sister, when she did this, she had like the whole page circled, and like, we're going to have to narrow down. So, for example, I do have 10. I couldn't narrow it any farther than that. I know I'm talking about my sister. And my core values are leadership, generosity, family, loyalty, grace, personal growth, gratefulness, humility, authenticity, and faith. So your overall goal today is to really look for what your core values are and narrow them down. Narrow them down, pinpoint them. We really want the ones that are most important to you. Then, following along, and this is all in your participant guide, after you've circled them and narrowed them down, you're going to narrow down your core values to between 5 and 10. You're going to write down those core values in the circle on page 10 where it says core values. Then you're going to write a definition of one of the core values that is most evident in your life and give an example of what that looks like. When I did Chazown for the first time, the one I chose to write about was leadership. And I defined it as helping others become that which they can't become on their own. And in the job that I have the opportunity to help lead other women to be successful business owners. And so it's very evident in my life, and I love that. It's a huge core value to me. It's really important. So try to pinpoint one and show a picture of what it looks like in your life. You're also going to want to ask yourself these questions that you can find on page 10 to clarify the core values that you've identified. Can you see how your past experiences relate to each of these values? Is there anything missing? Which of these values have actually been displayed in the last 90 days in your life? Would the people closest to you recognize these as your core values? And that's something that's important. And there may be things on the list that you think, you know what, that is one of my core values, but people don't maybe not recognize that in me. And maybe that's something that you'll need to work on when we get to the 5 spokes. But consider those questions. After we've really looked at your core values and you've narrowed them down between 5 and 10, you've put them in that box, then we're going to go on to our spiritual gifts and work on embracing our spiritual gifts. You are going to define one. Now, what I find is interesting, and you may have done this, I took the test the first time, the spiritual gifts assessment test online, and I've done this twice, the Chazown experience, within a couple months of each other. The first time I did it, my spiritual gifts came out to be hospitality, service, guidance, leadership, exhortation, and faith. The second time I did it, they came out to be leadership, prophecy, helps and service, giving, and faith. And I found that interesting that they were different, but I can see both of those. I can see all of those things coming up in my life, but maybe it was just a different time that I was going through. I'm not sure. So that's interesting. You're going to want to write the results from your spiritual gifts assessment that you took online into your participant guide on page 11 in that circle. So you're going to write those gifts that you were identified there. Then you're going to brainstorm some ideas about what you're especially good at, areas that you have natural talent, or just things that come easily to you. Because these are also gifts that you've been given that we can't necessarily assess on a test, but that you are aware of and that you can add to your spiritual gifts. A couple of mine were writing, organization, speaking. Those are all things that come naturally to me, that I love to do, that are gifts, they're talents. You'll also want to prayerfully consider the items on both of these lists and identify which ones might be your spiritual gifts. So you're going to look at the list that you've created of the things that you are naturally good at, the things that you enjoy doing, the things that you have natural ability in, and then you're going to look at the list from the assessment you took, and you may completely disagree with something on the assessment, and that's okay. So you're going to weed out the ones that you think maybe aren't and put together your spiritual gifts. Okay? The very last step of today is we're going to bring all three of our circles together: our past experiences, our spiritual gifts, and our core values. So you're going to go to page 12 of your participant guide, and it has 3 circles. And what we're going to start to do is transfer the information. So you're going to take your core values from the other page and place them in the circle here. You're going to take your spiritual gifts that you just wrote down and place them here. Now, you don't have to, I didn't write anything in my past experiences circle, but you are going to write some of the key, maybe you have some past experiences that really stick out to you, that you know are going to be part of your purpose. Something that you went through, that you experienced. Maybe it was painful, maybe it was a huge blessing, whatever it was. Something that you went through that's going to contribute to your purpose statement, or that really relates to your core values and your spiritual gifts. So we're going to begin to look at all 3 of these. You're going to want to take some time during this session to really reflect on how these 3 circles intersect. How do all of these things come together and begin to make you who you are, uniquely made by God? How are these 3 things going to form your purpose statement? Where do they overlap? Where do they converge? Prayerfully consider this. Prayerfully, seek God and say, what are you trying? What do you want me to see? I'm looking at it, I have it. Really show me and guide me what you want me to see. Ask Him to reveal to you how all 3 areas come together, because where they merge is where you're going to find your Chazown. Next week, we're going to examine these circles even further and begin to put a name to your Chazown. I know that when we did this in my women's group, I remember after this session, everyone was like, where is this going? I don't feel like I'm any closer to knowing my purpose. And you're going to feel like that. And even when we meet next week for session 4, I think you're going to feel like you have no clue what your purpose is going to be when we begin to meet. But as you prayerfully consider and as you brainstorm, it's going to become clear to you. And I'm so excited about next week. I'm excited to see that change. I'm excited to experience that with you and help you to go through that process. The video for next week, I'm excited about. We actually shot it before we shot this one. But there's a couple women from my group who've been through the Chazown experience who agreed to share their purpose statements and kind of what their experience was like going through session 4, and actually going through all of it and how they felt after session 3, and they have all this information, but what does it mean? And they're going to kind of give you some guidance. It's really great to hear it from them, to say, you know what, I really didn't know until I started to work through it in session 4, and it just really became evident to me. So I want you to know you're not alone. If you still feel completely lost and you have no clue where this is going, it's okay. You're not the only one who's thinking that right now. I promise you that over the next couple of weeks, you're going to begin to see these 3 circles merge together, and you're really going to begin to see your purpose come to life. It's going to be something only you can do. It's going to be something big, and it's going to be something that you're going to have God on your side and walking with you to do. So I'm so excited about next week. I can't wait. I just ask this week that you really prayerfully seek God over your 3 circles. Ask Him to reveal to you, what is it you're trying to show me? I know that through all of this, there is something great in me. Ask Him to show you what that is. and you'll be ready for next week. In preparation for session 4, you have a little bit of homework. You're going to want to read all of part 3 of Chazown, which is going to talk about putting a name to your Chazown, writing down your purpose statement. That's chapters 18 through 30, or pages 62 to 93. So I hope you're following along with us with the book. It's hugely beneficial and helpful, and I hope that you're enjoying meeting us here each week. I cannot wait to see you next week for session 4 of Chazown, and may you have a wonderful week as you seek God about how your 3 circles merge together. Can't wait to hear what He has in store for you. I'll see you next week.